Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
The taxi industry is changing at a rapid pace, and one of the Irish companies that is at the forefront of this change is Lynk. I'm joined on the phone now by Noel Ebbs, CEO of Lynk. Noel, firstly, how does Lynk work?
So Lynk operates whatever way the user wants it to work. We're multi-platform. We operate on iOS, Android, Windows 10, soon to be by the end of this month. Web Booker, we're soon to launch an Outlook add-in, so we'll be on your calendar. So for the regular consumer, that amounts to one word, apps.
President Noel, Lynk is only available in the Dublin area, but I understand that a nationwide rollout is planned shortly.
We're going to start the rollout in July. To go nationwide, and then we're in fact looking to recruit either taxi companies or individual groups of drivers to come on board Lynk. So we're not just talking about working through taxi companies. We can work with independents who don't want to be restricted to working for a company outside of Dublin.
Now, inevitably, there will be comparisons made between Lynk and Halo, but Lynk has opted for the licence fee route rather than the revenue sharing model offered by Halo. Why did you decide to pursue the licence fee route?
Okay, so we see ourselves as being community-based and traditional in the way that we approach the market. So there are options for the commission route that is taken by some apps. And our experience abroad, by looking at these markets and studying them very closely, is that it is really, really difficult to survive at the rates of commission that's being charged by some of the apps. So, for example, what's happened in the UK is that the rates have gone from the 10%, 12% level up as far as 35%. So we'd be very nervous that we could get into that level of charge to drivers, which we just feel is way too much. So what we've opted for is one charge, weekly subscription. It's like a membership, but you're building your own business. You're building your own client base in your own neighborhood. You can build up your own accounts, your own regular customers, and all of these are registered against you and your buddies in your own hometown. So that any customer who's booking then on the Lynk app or through the Lynk website, or we will issue you with a number if you like for your own hometown, all of that work is going to you and it's protected in the local community by the technology that we have.
Safety has become a major consideration for consumers when choosing a taxi, especially through an app. So how has Lynk incorporated safety into its service?
Okay, so this is back to what I said there. We see ourselves very much as being a community-based service, and I think the industry has lost sight of itself with all of this technology and all of these talks of billions of dollars and billions of euros. I think we've lost sight of who we really are. We are a community service. It's all about local people transporting local people to where they need to go. So this is where we're focused. Our technology allows users to be able to choose the drivers that they're comfortable with. So a customer or passenger can choose on their app drivers that they like, drivers that they get on with, drivers that they're comfortable with, drivers they feel safe with. They can choose these drivers. They can save them on their app as their preferred drivers. That work will be allocated to those preferred drivers as the person books. Obviously, that's dependent on the driver being working. If he's not working, then it goes to the next favourite and the next favourite and so on. So it's all about community. It's all about safety. It's all about keeping things local so that you know the guy who's going to pull up outside your door, or at least you have a very good chance of knowing the guy who's going to pull up outside your door. So we feel that this is a very, very good way of addressing this safety issue.
Noel, you started the company just 16 months ago, but already you're employing 75 people in your base in Newmarket, which is a fantastic number for such a young business. But what areas of the business are these people employed in, and do you envisage further employment growth in the future?
Okay, so about a third of these staff are in customer contact. So these would be the people that will be on the end of the phone when you ring in. Now, years ago, traditionally, 90% of these people would be customer contact. So only about a third now are customer contact. About 10% of these guys are what we call supervisors. So these are watching the systems, They're watching the bookings coming in. 90% of this is automated. But about 10% of this needs hands-on and eyes-on. And you never know the day you're going to need that. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that the appropriate car is dispatched to the appropriate person at the appropriate time. So if you have a particular need or a special need, or you're a minor, for example, a kid, under a certain age, or you're an old person, you can note that on our system, that you have a particular requirement, and we will see to that requirement. And I don't necessarily just mean, we'd say, for example, pick any particular requirement, like you might require a wheelchair accessible vehicle or something like that. I don't simply mean that. I mean something much more sophisticated. And this is where the eyes-on is very, very important. So about 10% of the people are involved in that 24/7. We have about another 30 or 40% involved in corporate account management. So these are looking after businesses and their accounts and their needs, and then the rest is involved in IT development.
Now, it would be a missed opportunity, Noel, if we didn't discuss Uber. What are your thoughts on this divisive brand? And do you ever see a situation whereby the fully fledged offering that Uber has, let's say in the US, will be on offer here in Ireland to unlicensed drivers?
Okay, so the way Uber are operating at the moment in Ireland, I don't suppose anybody has anything to give out about that. They're operating within the law. They're operating with taxis, and that's perfectly legal. So I don't have anything untoward to say about that. With regard to this other service that they provide abroad, I think they're calling it rideshare at the moment. It used to be Uber Pop. Before that, it was something else. I suppose I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about the European taxi market. The European taxi market is very, very highly evolved, very highly regulated, and of a very, very high standard. Now, the truth is that the same thing can't be said about the service in the States, because it isn't really that highly evolved. The standard is not quite the way it is here. The technology certainly is not as highly evolved as it is here in Ireland and in Europe. So I don't think that there's a real need or opportunity for this particular rideshare option here. Certain people would say that in the States that the rideshare is actually a step up from the taxi service. But here I think it would definitely be, just in my opinion, I think it would be a step down. I think the quality of the taxi service, the quality of the cars, the quality of drivers, the quality of the regulations is all very, very high. And I think that's a real obstacle to the likes of the rideshare apps trying to get into Europe.
Another hot topic, and one that's going to be big in the future, is that whole area of self-driving cars. We're probably somewhere between 5 and 10 years away from seeing self-driving cars on the market. Now, I know Tesla are making serious advances in that space, but looking at that whole concept of the self-driving car, how do you think it's going to impact the taxi business? Do you see it as an opportunity or a threat?
Yeah, so I would certainly see it as an opportunity for the industry, and I would certainly see it as a very, very big threat to drivers. So there's two sides to that coin. I think drivers really need to be concerned about this, because it will certainly do them a lot of harm. There isn't any doubt about that. I think taxi companies could see it as an opportunity that they may want to invest in, to have a certain amount of autonomous vehicles on their fleet. But you are right, it's probably around 10 years away. They're running trials all over the world. They have these autonomous vehicles operating in a single lane capacity in certain areas on fixed routes, and it seems to be working fine. There's accidents here and there, but I don't believe there have been any fatalities. But I suppose it depends on what perspective you're coming from. Definitely from a driver's point of view, this is a very serious risk. From a company's point of view, it probably is an opportunity, but it was one that I think it's one that you'd want to consider very, very carefully. Autonomous vehicles operating alongside manually driven cars, it's going to be one hell of a challenge. It's going to be a big challenge.
But just thinking about it from a driver's perspective myself, right, owning a car, let's say in 5 or 10 years' time, if I owned a self-driving vehicle and I was going out on a Saturday night to have a few drinks, the car would bring me into town on the Saturday night. I could send it back home again, and it could come back in at 2 or 3 in the morning and collect me to bring me home. So that would actually negate the fact that I'd ever need to use a taxi again. Have you considered that type of a threat?
I certainly have considered that, and we're in discussion with the likes of Volkswagen and Toyota about this. So what we see is that the whole industry will definitely change. We would be able to transport people if we were to use that technology for about 25 cents a kilometre. So it would make very little sense. Car ownership will fade out, I think, if that's to happen. I think there will be pools of cars available for drivers or for people to use at their own will, parked in various places around the city under various different controls of various different technologies. Now, we've looked at the software that's in these cars, and it's not, it's complicated, of course, but for us as dispatch operations, it's not that complicated. It's no more complicated than what we're currently doing.
These things happening in the background, there's no doubting that disruption is only starting in the taxi industry. And you're very interested in growing Lynk and actually entering the US market, one of the most competitive markets in the world regarding taxi businesses.
Yeah, so what we've done is we have developed the technology that will allow us to move into ready-made pre-existing markets. So that includes the UK, where we have 12,500 drivers signed up, and in the US, where we have around 5,000 drivers. Now, 5,000 drivers in the US is nothing, but it's a start. So remember that we're moving into a pre-existing market. We're installing our technology into pre-existing companies. And these companies are going to be paying license fees to us per driver every single week. So this is where our revenues come from. This is what's going to allow us to compete, and this is what's going to allow us to grow.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.